He becomes seeking to squash an concept that has been developing in reputation ever for the reason that 2019 ncov coronavirus outbreak began, that his virology lab, at the heart of Wuhan, is probably responsible. In a way, he turned into right. In a time of crisis, the closing thing all of us would need to do is unfold fear. The official story is that 2019 ncov started in a very food market in Wuhan. Unclean animals oversubscribed there have been carrying the virus, Chinese scientists have prompt, and, as a result, some unlucky shoppers over up turning into patient zeros for a worldwide crisis. You've in all probability already detected that rationalization before, and there's an honest likelihood you've accepted it as a reality. However, there are some evident issues with it. For one factor, the primary patients with 2019 ncov don't have any affiliation to the market any. They lived close, and that they seem to own unfold the sickness to people that went there. However, the $64,000 patient zeros ne'er really stepped foot within it. 2. Also, 2019 ncov is believed to own originated in buggy, and this was a food market. No one was commerce buggy within this market. Buggy simply aren't one thing individuals in Wuhan commonly eat. 3. Even China's scientists have started backing far away from this theory. To quote one directly, it appears clear that the food market isn't the sole origin of the virus. However, to be honest, we tend to still don't apprehend wherever the virus came from. 4. A ton of individuals have pointed to the Wuhan Institute of Medical Specialty, that is simply a half-hour drive for the food market. However, if that's not shut enough for you, there's another research laboratory that researches bat coronaviruses that's even closer, the Wuhan Center for Sickness Management and Interference. It's not simply on the opposite facet of city. It's on the opposite facet of the road. The Wuhan Virology Lab was studying bat coronaviruses. The Wuhan Center for Disease Control and Prevention isn't simply an administrative office. Scientists were in that constructing actively conducting research, including studies on coronaviruses in bats. 6. A lot of researchers in Wuhan have been. It were a major undertaking for the city, and the Wuhan Institute of Virology took tremendous delight in. They had been at the vanguard in researching the causes of SARS, and it became their researchers who had verified that the remaining SARS outbreak originated in bats. 7. They had to observe a lousy lot of ill bats to do it, though. Researchers were amassing bats infected with the coronavirus since as a minimum 2012, and they had been that specialize in ones that could unfold their infection to human beings. 8. There were hundreds of bats in Wuhan's labs whilst the 2019 ncov outbreak started, and the researchers there were studying at least 11 new strains of SARS-associated viruses in them. 9. And, yes, they have been doing it across the street from the vicinity wherein the outbreak started. The outbreak across the street from a virology lab. The coronavirus that's spreading around the arena at this very second has been called novel due to the fact it's unique. It's exceptional from past diseases, like SARS. About 30% distinct, to be exact. That's not just quite a number we pulled out of our heads. Scientists have compared the genetic series of SARS to 2019 ncov, and they've discovered that they're approximately 70% similar. 10. That's a rough number, the real one might be a bit higher. But the real number in all likelihood isn't 96%, which is the proportion match scientists have determined between 2019 ncov and a shape of the coronavirus carried by way of bats inside of the Wuhan Institute of Virology. 11. But wait a minute, you say. If the ones bats had the virus, there were probable bats all round Wuhan that had it, right? Afraid now not. 2019 ncov isn't just like bat coronaviruses in general, it's much like a totally particular strain of bat coronavirus carried by using bats in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Not each bat coronavirus has that 96% healthy. In fact, when any other lab in comparison 2019 ncov to their very own bats, the closest healthy they could find changed into 88%. 12. And those bats weren't local. If you were living in Wuhan and you definitely desired to locate one of these bats, you'd either ought to go to the virology lab or to the vicinity those bats had come from, Yunnan and Zhejiang, that's a little over 900 kilometers away. An infected bat bled on a researcher shortly before the outbreak. Okay, so a disorder lab became studying diseases. So what? That doesn't show that it ever got out, right? While it's noticeably not going that the Wuhan Institute of Virology deliberately plagued its own people, it honestly wouldn't have been that hard for anyone to capture it by way of accident. Imagine if a bat attacked a researcher and, inside the chaos, spilled its blood onto his naked skin. Or believe if he got a bit too near and got bat urine on his body. Or consider both of those things befell to the same man or woman no longer long before the 2019 ncov outbreak began. That's precisely what came about. According to a record by Chinese researchers Botao and Lei Xiao, 14, a researcher named Junhua Tian defined these precise studies in an interview with the Changjiang Times. Junhua Tian claims he quarantined himself to keep from spreading these disease, but even if he and his colleagues used every possible precaution, it's viable that the virus still could have leaked out. One aspect we've learned since the outbreak is that human beings can display no signs and symptoms at all and nonetheless be infected. And, according to a recent look at out of Japan business management articles, people who've recovered can nevertheless bring the virus.